Welcome in, everyone, to another live edition of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my producer, DK, in the background, but no Jimmy for this one. But have no fear. We will have a guest here in just a few minutes. Jason from DraftPlex is going to be joining us to talk about now that some of the needs have changed. Some things have shifted since we last talked to Jason after some re-signing of players, also new additions to the team. And I don't think we got a chance to get through all of the positions, certainly not the ones now of need. Now that, Ronnie Stanley's back in town, he's here. We don't have to worry about, oh, my goodness, got to get penciled into a day one left tackle or what are they going to do blocking these pass rushers around the AFC? That's no longer the case. Ronnie's going to be holding post on the left side. And, of course, we know about Roger on the right. So tackle is all of a sudden, not the need that it once was. So we're going to talk about a bunch of the new needs with Jason from DraftPlex. Excited to talk about him. It's always nice to get Jason's knowledge in on the show and make us, all a little bit more, little bit smarter when it comes to the draft. What's up, Queese? Queese? I think it's Queese. Queese Hunter, appreciate you coming out. Thank you, Travis. What's going on, man? Yeah, holding it down. Jimbo's out saving the world, as he always is, if he's not here with us. But before we get into it, up in Jersey, okay. Appreciate you coming. Lisa Ann, yes, appreciate you joining us once again. Again, it's nice to see you back in the chat. Glad to see you're doing well. Got to keep the lights on. You got it. And speaking of keeping the lights on, got to shout out the sponsor, BetOnline, who is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all the madness that's currently going. I've been watching it all day, folks, literally from noon to now. It has been on my television, and apart from the couple errands I had to run, I've been parked in front of the TV enjoying the madness. Been a couple of interesting games. Also, a good amount of blowouts. Have to wait for the Terps tomorrow, but enjoying the madness nonetheless. And I am very much so a participant on BetOnline, getting my bracket in there. And whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest that I am also in, certainly a participant of. BetOnline continues to be your number one betting source. From Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win, and every buzzer beater. BetOnline, the game starts here. Got my bracket in there, and let me tell you, there was McNeese. What do you? McNeese came out here and absolutely put on a show while being led by a coach who's already announced that he's agreed to move on from the program. So he's not even staying with McNeese. The moment they lose, it would be the last game that coach is there. It's Coach Will Wade who's moving on. I can't exactly remember where he's headed, but they pull off the massive upset, the 12-5 upset over Clemson. And they handled him. 20 points from start to finish. It's absolutely crazy. Keenan in Ireland. This is insane. Watching in Ireland, that is too cool. Appreciate you jumping in here with us. Popping off early tonight. Yes. Brazil. Bills in Brazil. What's going on? Tyler's in the chat. Appreciate you coming out, my boy. Appreciate it. Happy to be back. Happy to see you back, Lisa Ann. But yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, needs have changed. Needs have shifted. We talked earlier with Jason about the potential big body wide receiver that the Ravens have seemingly never been able to get in the draft. And Eric DaCosta was recently asked about that. And he talked about that need and that, he talked about those. He said those receivers, that type of player doesn't grow on trees. The big bodied guy, the guy that has the ability to win those 50-50 balls, to go up over a shorter, smaller DB and win those balls at the high point. We haven't had that in Baltimore. Seemingly have that now with an aging but still very capable DeAndre Hopkins, who has never relied on blazing speed or quickness to get himself separation or to make plays. So even in his older years, even though the fact that there's no doubt, at over 30 years old, he's not what he once was 5-6 years ago. But when a player doesn't rely on that to start with, it's not as big of a hindrance when you lose a step, because this guy just finds other ways to get open. And even if he's not open, has an ability to win the ball regardless. So excited to certainly have him, but that means the needs change. That means we don't necessarily need to target that. Now, of course, this is a best player available type of organization, certainly as it pertains to the last half of the draft. So if a big-bodied guy were to fall their way, I'm sure, that they're not going to be opposed to taking him. However, I don't think it's going to be a need, certainly in the first few rounds. Now, having said that, I have seen some mock drafts, and I'm excited to talk about them here in a little bit with Jason. I have seen some recent mock drafts putting Tatario McMillan here as who's the big body wide receiver out of Arizona, if my memory is correct. But I would be so hyped if that guy fell. But unless it's something like that, where is there a guy who absolutely drops into the Ravens' lap, I don't see an early first round, especially when you look at the depth chart right now. Like, you feel pretty good about, and shout out to Cole for putting this graphic together and letting us, I'm borrowing it, Cole. I appreciate it, but all credit to Cole Jackson for creating this. But as you see here, wide receivers feel pretty good about that group as it is. Like, no glaring weaknesses, no obvious, missing links in that group. Zay Flowers, it continues to get better and better every year. I think we're all excited about how good that guy can be. I don't think we've gotten to see his heights of his talent yet. I think he's still got room to grow, and I don't think he's as good as he's going to be. Rashad Bateman had the breakout year last year. Now his contract looks like an absolute steal. Tylan Wallace, kind of waiting to see that breakout. Hopeful. I think there's a lot of people who are thinking that this is the year, but we got to wait and see if Tez Walker's the guy or if he's just another wide receiver draft pick for Baltimore that didn't pan out. I have hopes for him. I still think he's got talent. Just didn't get an opportunity last year, but let's see what happens this year. Talked about DeAndre Hopkins, and then Tylan Wallace. I mean, he's a perfect 5'6" receiver on your team as a standout on special teams. Obviously, can fill in at punt return and kick return if need be, and has had a game winner under his belt at punt return. So you feel good about that. And then Anthony Miller as the sixth guy. That's the position that's certainly up for grabs, but not anything where I'm like, we need that. So things change there. I mean, and we talked a little bit about that last time. So point is, needs are changing, and I'm excited. Also, new information coming out of the draft as pro days have been flying lately, like absolutely flying. Like, I saw today a bunch of insane stuff, like Jalen Milroe. What 4.3? What is he running? It's absolutely unbelievable, the athleticism we're seeing out of quarterbacks, and I got to imagine that Lamar Jackson's playing a role in in kind of breaking the mold of what used to be the prototypical quarterback, and I think Jalen's got a chance. Bit of a project, but I think he's got a chance, and he's obviously a freak athlete. But look, I'm here. I'm excited to talk to, a frequent guest. If you watch the show, of course, this next gentleman here. But if you're in any draft pools, if there's any bets you have with the neighborhood family or coworkers at the office, anything about the draft, then you need to be following DraftPlex. You need to be following DraftPlex because you need to be following the most accurate draft predictor that there is. And you can find them right here on 410 Sports Talk. And welcoming back to the show, Jason Pruett. Appreciate you joining us once again. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good. Exclusive to 410 Sports Talk at this point, right?
That's right. That's right. You can't find them. You might be able to find Mel somewhere else, but you ain't finding DraftPlex anywhere but right here. Appreciate you joining us. How you doing tonight? You doing well?
No, we're doing good. Making a little headway since the last time I was on. I kind of mentioned that in the outreach of say, hey, can you get on tonight? And like, yeah, we're looking at players. We're kind of going position by position, kind of filling out the board from the top down. Getting everybody that maybe possibly could be drafted. That's part of the process for me. Is like, I want the board to have everybody that's gets drafted. I've only gotten that once before because you always get these random selections out of nowhere, some small school or some kicker from nowhere, that nobody had even had on there. I'm no Dane Brugler with the however many 1,500 players. I go about 500. So that's where we're getting to. I've gotten through quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends from that standpoint. Got the offensive line on deck, and then hitting the defense. So we're gonna try to get through this in the next week or two, and then it's gonna be time to mock draft. Well, that's when we get the fun part in.
That's right. Yeah, that's the funnest part. And look, the Ravens going into this draft, obviously every year the draft is a key part on how the Ravens build and continue to remain competitive year after year. They are the league leaders in compensation picks since that's become a thing in the NFL. So they value it more than I think maybe any other team in the league. But this is also a team. PFF just dropped their 2025 power rankings post the initial part of free agency. And number one is the Baltimore Ravens. This is a familiar scene to see the Ravens in the top part of any power rankings. But number one, after PFF says the re-signing of Ronnie Stanley, the addition of DeAndre Hopkins on top of what they already have in Baltimore is going to lead to potential success. I think they get over the hump this season, but it's going to start with a good draft. And I mentioned how Ronnie Stanley's now back in town, shifts the need for tackle is no longer a huge need. And I don't think wide receiver is either with DeAndre, but I do got to get your take really quick. Now that you said you've gotten through wide receivers, I got a little excited. I saw a recent Todd McShay mock draft, and I got to say, I would not be upset at all, even with the addition, because we all realize that DeAndre Hopkins isn't playing forever. If he is true, this was the last member I saw or player I saw mocked. And it stunned me because I saw what he ran, kind of silenced some doubters with what he was able to run. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was like a 4.47 or something. It was sub 4.5 at his size. Yeah. What is there any chance that McShay? I mean, McShay's a pretty known name when it comes to drafts. Is there any chance in hell McMillan falls to 27, Jason?
Man, you sure it's not the Baltimore Colts? Because you need a horseshoe up somewhere to get that to happen. I feel like that's as low. I hadn't seen McShay's mock draft, so that's as low as I've seen him. I thought Jeremiah was low when he went 21 to the Chargers.
Okay.
To get him all the way at the bottom, there'd have to be something else to it. Like I don't think, he wasn't going to come in and run like a 4.4. And of course, like pro day numbers, you kind of always take that with a grain of salt. But like for what he's not a burner by any means. You just want him to be, decent enough, right? And surely a high 4.4, possibly like a low 4.5 is just fine. Mm-hmm. I did see kind of a funny, somebody made kind of a mention of this. Tyquan Thornton, who ran like a 4.3 something, got drafted by the Patriots in the third round a couple years ago. Like, it doesn't matter if you run 4.3 if you run routes like this, and it was not pretty. And right. So there's other ways to get open, right? It's not just blowing by everybody. I would be hesitant to have him go that low. I just think there's too many teams to clear to get all the way down to the Ravens and have him. Like, I don't know. I didn't know if he had other receivers going ahead of him. Really, at this point, I think, it's always kind of preference. I think, Travis Hunter will be top 5, right? And that depends on if a team's going to be wide receiver, corner. But I couldn't, based on kind of the way things are going, it's possible that Ted McMillan could be the 4th receiver off the board. Matthew Golden, I think, has gained some steam since the combine, obviously. Emeka Egbuka has been pretty steady throughout, but I think, like, he offers something a little bit different to, once you get kind of in that 12 to 18 range with like a Dallas, needing a number 2 receiver. And that's kind of what Egbuka has been, even though he might have number 1 traits. He's kind of always been the Robin to the Batmans that have come through there. Yeah. So it's possible, depending on, but that'd be a reach for me to kind of see him going all the way down to 27 like that.
Yeah, and I agree too. I don't know why I allowed myself to even get swept up in it. I was excited about it.
Hey, now hold on. We've had Kyle Hamilton, we had Tyler Linderbaum. These things have happened. That it's minuscule probability, but hey, miracles can happen on draft night, man.
Fingers crossed. That would be absolutely insane to see that guy in purple and black with the core of weapons that are already surrounding Lamar Jackson. That would be fun to see. But I'm certainly not going to hold my breath. Now, I think what becomes the new position of the most need here in Baltimore is going to be the cornerback position. Outside of Nate Wiggins and Marlon Humphrey, I don't think you can really necessarily count on what's behind those two. I think that's about the max of what you're going to get. So you have some other guys on the team, unless I'm forgetting somebody. Now, of course, we have safeties that can drop down, and we have young guys. I mean, TJ Tampa is a guy that I have a lot of hopes for, but I don't think you can count on TJ Tampa to take over at the outside corner position and he's the guy. But I do think cornerback. What's going on, Coach Evans? Sip the tally in the chat, man. We got to get Coach back on here in the coming weeks here. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna reach out, Coach. I appreciate you joining us. It's been far too long. Nuno, Jimmy's saving the world. That's where Jimmy is anytime he's not here at 410 Sports Talk. He's out there changing people's lives for the better, okay? That much you can be certain of. But back to cornerback. When you, like with cornerbacks, I think the Ravens are particular in the style in which they are looking for. I don't think they're looking for just anyone. I think it's an outside corner. I don't think they need much help on the inside. They got options. And I think they need an outside corner to allow Marlon Humphrey to continue to play that role inside, to allow Kyle Hamilton to drop down into the nickel if need be, or the dime. But with cornerback, specifically outside corner, how quickly, how many do you see going in the first round? Do you think there's going to be an early run? Is this a draft that has corners available throughout, late? Like, what's the cornerback position looking like?
It's a little mixed. Like, corner is difficult with this class particular because you have so many kind of injuries that I think are impacting kind of evaluations at this stage. Obviously, Travis Hunter, I think, is kind of clear in a way, number one. Barron from Texas, who they've got number 2 on the board there at, was it 7 overall?
Yeah.
The only thing with him is like the measurables, right? Because he came in, the arms are short. He's probably more of a nickel. But I think he's good enough to play on the outside. But like depending on what you're looking
23.
for, like he's not going to be for every team.
A little older, right? 23, is that older?
A little bit. I mean, I think we're getting to the tail end of where the age range, with COVID years and NIL and that sort of thing. Kind of these guys are 6, 7. I'm not going for a 7-year college player, but
right. Yeah, exactly.
5 is not out of the question anymore.
Okay.
Will Johnson, we haven't seen do anything in a while because he's been hurt. He didn't participate in the combine. There's concerns about his speed. I don't know that he has kind of a defining trait, just being really solid. He's somebody that's kind of started out as part of this is like he's top 5. Like he wasn't getting past Jacksonville at any point at number 5, like if he wasn't going before then. And now you're seeing him in the teens, maybe slipping into the 20s. So he's kind of hard to get a read on at this point. Could he get all the way down there? Possibly so. But he's somebody that's lost some steam as we've gone on through this process. As you've seen, Barron, some of these other players we'll talk about here coming up. But he's kind of in that mix. I think probably is corner 2 or corner 3 off the board.
Now, when you say, what does that mean? Like, when are we going to see these runs start?
I don't know that we see. I think it'll be kind of sprinkled out. I don't think you're going to see corner after corner after corner because everybody is kind of all over the map in terms of what they offer and what they might bring, what might be impacting their draft grade. Trey Amos right there from Ole Miss is somebody that's gained some steam too. I have started seeing him kind of late first round mocks, so he might be somebody that's there.
6'1", I like that.
Yeah, size, speed, plays downhill, supporting the run game. And so he's somebody that I could see. He could be a sleeper to go earlier than you might think. And I'm not just talking about first round. Like he could maybe slip a little bit earlier. We saw a couple of years ago guys like Emmanuel Forbes and things. I know he didn't pan out, but like he was somebody that kind of on draft night, it was like, oh, he's going, top 20.
Yeah.
And everybody was thinking, well, maybe he'll crack the first round. And here he is halfway through the night and he's off the board. Trey Amos could be that guy this year. Another one that had a lot of buzz coming out of the combine is Maxwell Hairston, who ran, I think, the fastest time overall at a 4.28. He was hurt a little bit this year, but certainly, pretty scrappy out there on the outside. Maybe a little bit lean, but he's certainly in that mix for the first round too. I know I haven't gotten to kind of my second eval of the corners yet. He's going to move up. I'm not sure I can bump him all the way into the first round. That might just be like those rose-colored glasses from the combine. But I think late in the first round, he's certainly a possibility. And then after that, another player that has kind of started to be popping into the first round, I don't think he's quite there on their list yet, is Azariah Thomas from Florida State. So, yet maybe they have him. He might have been further at the top. Might have went through him or not. I'm not sure what they're.
There we go.
Yeah, so they've got him at 63. I've started seeing him a little bit in the first round too. So there's probably something to that. I think it might have been Daniel Jeremiah's, or it might have been Mel Kiper's. It was one of them because those are really the only two that I've been looking at.
I like the sound of a 6'2", quick-footed press cover at corner.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, so that's a possibility too. Then I think after that,
20 years old, Jason.
Yeah.
That's what I like to hear. That's better than 23.
There's a lot to like about Azariah Thomas. So I hope I'm probably not pronounce. I wait for pronunciations once I get to Beast, because then I can actually read it and understand it, because I don't know who all is.
Azariah. I'm going to say it's Azariah. What do you think, DK? Is that right? Azariah? I got to imagine. That sounds right. What's going on, Don C? Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, I think I botched somebody's name last week. I forgot. Last time I was on, I forgot who it was. But I was like,
it's a lot of names, man. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, that is not my forte. I barely learn like simple names until like 3 or 4 times of meeting somebody and learning, and letting them just names on a page. So,
look, this guy seems like a nice guy. He came from Niceville, Florida. Look at that. Seems like a nice guy.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the names you're looking at for first round. Ravel, 44, right there on the rank. He was obviously coming from East Carolina, smaller school competition. Was hurt this year, but the physical ability is there, but he hasn't been all that involved in process coming off of a torn ACL. I did see that he was on the treadmill running about 21 miles per hour. So you like to see that. Should be ready to go by the time, activity starts to pick up. But I'm not sure that he's cracking the first round anymore. He was very early on kind of, CB2, CB3. And now I think he's mostly probably a second round type player.
Yeah. It looks like this would be a big jump in competition with not a lot of play experience, but you got to love the measurables. 6'3", a little slight, 193, but that's tempting. What about Ben Morrison? I know he was getting a lot of love before the season and kind of throughout, but not as much as I was expecting during draft coverage.
Yeah, it's a little scary because he's kind of got injury history, and the injury he's coming off now is a hip. So, not sure what to make of him. I did like the tape when I watched it, but like that injury kind of always, you almost kind of discount him in a way. So it's especially depending on a hip surgery is not an ACL or, a broken foot or something like that. That could be a long-term injury. I haven't heard much about his kind of, combine medical, compare that to like a Josh Simmons as offensive tackles. Like there was a lot of concern about the knee. He seems to be like he's going to be good, and he's probably going to be moving up, mid first round, if not earlier, depending on how the rest of this process goes. But Morrison's not a guy that I've heard much about in terms of still breaking it into the first round. And that, I think that injury is kind of scary. So, hopefully everything checks out for him. He's a very good player. I could probably see him going second round at this point, but if not, certainly by the third.
Yeah. And hopefully if he could be one of those players that if your medical team signs off on him and feels good about it, and he ends up becoming a dependable player, then you could get a real steal way later than he should have gone. Way more talented than a third round pick for sure. So let's hope that he can stay healthy. But all right, well, outside of and also I guess before I move on from corner, do you see some later round guys as well that might be able to participate and help early, or is it, as it gets later in the draft, is it more so projects or guys that you might not be able to count on week one?
No, I think there's pretty good depth. Like there's some questions at the top of this, but mostly just on injury. Like talent wise, I think corner's going to stretch. Actually, kind of that next tier is where I like a lot of different guys. We talked about a lot of the names, but one that might be up early is Quincy Riley from Louisville. They're way low on him.
That's okay. That is okay.
I think everybody else, the DJs and the Mels, but we're on Quincy Riley. He's going to be a top 100 player. I think he could possibly crack the second round.
He's almost 24 though. Woo.
Well, yeah, like I said, we'll deal with that when we get to it. He's no Tyler Shuck at 26 by the time this
or
thing
Brandon
rolls
Weeden.
around.
Remember Brandon Weeden?
Brandon Weeden. Good grief. Him and Chris Winkie going way back.
Yeah, there you go.
That brother was 30 before he was at college football. Anyway, but yeah, another guy that has a lot of buzz coming out of the combine, Darian Porter, who hadn't played a lot of football and really just kind of came out this year. He's probably ranked a little bit higher, maybe. Yeah, kind of right there, 59. I think it's 59.
Yep.
Size, got it. Speed, got it. Just doesn't have a lot of
6'4".
game reps. So I think he's kind of he'll crack top 100 just because of the measurables. Dan Quinn's coaching in Washington, so at the very least he'll take him in the third round. But I think he has a chance to kind of go earlier on day two. I don't think he's going to be top 40, top 50, but there could be a team that likes him that high. Jacob Parrish, who's kind of more of a nickel, Kansas State. I like him quite a bit. I think he's somebody that I could see probably third round.
But definitely a nickel, right? Yeah, I guess at that height, huh?
Yeah, and then you have a couple of Kansas cornerbacks.
Right here, Kobe and Mello.
Kobe and Mello, so they're both I think really talented. And
Kobe
I think
Bryant.
Yeah.
Whew. It's a name to live up to, my man.
Yeah, that's why it's spelled different.
That's right.
It's like, no, it's Cobee. But I think both of them have a chance to kind of go in the third, but maybe probably your fourth round guys. Okay. And then Zy Alexander from LSU, who is another kind of height, weight, speed type prospect. I think he's got a chance to be pretty good in that middle round area to kind of give you some value there as you get into day three. And if you go further down, there's kind of a couple of maybe I won't say lesser names, but one guy that I liked that I kind of have I'll call him my mid-green, which is kind of my 4 to 6. So certainly day three, O'Donnell Fortune from South Carolina. I was pretty impressed by what I saw on the tape. I got to go back and watch him a little bit more, but certainly the size and the experience of working in that defense. They had a lot of good players, but he stood out to me as somebody kind of more of a day three range. And then one of the names that's kind of been bubbling to the top throughout this process from a smaller school, if you call it that, Western Kentucky, Upton Stout, Senior Bowl. Certainly got a lot of love at the combine. He's just a smaller guy, certainly most likely a nickel moving forward. So
Stout, huh?
Yeah.
How's it spelled?
Exactly like that.
I guess they don't even have that, man. Look at that. See that? You get deep dives with DraftPlex, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not hard. I have a problem when, somebody will call him a sleeper. It's like, no, he was at the Senior Bowl. If you're at the Senior Bowl, you're not a sleeper.
That's a good point. Yeah, well, he's not on this list. Come on.
We could talk about the Hula Bowl a little bit. Like, there's some sleepers in there, some school you never heard of, but Western Kentucky has put some players in the league over the past few years. So I don't feel like there's an excuse not to have him on a board. But yeah, so a good cornerback class. I think there's value to be found kind of all the way through and even into the later rounds. I think there's a couple other guys that I'm going to kind of probably bump up, and then I've got a ton more to look through. There's smaller, scrappy guys. There's some project kind of height, weight, speed. Za Frazier from UTSA, if I can call him out.
You talking about Za Frazier? Yeah, let me
Yeah,
put him up there.
Za Frazier had a lot of picks last year, kind of former wide receiver, so he's still kind of learning the position. But
they don't even got him.
Yeah, so combine,
Come on, PFF, get it together.
This ain't hard, man. I mean, I do this in my free time. I can find these players, but they're not, hidden gems anywhere. Yeah.
Oh man, my man is slipping, man.
And I wanted to call somebody out. You go ahead and give a shout out to Don C there.
Yeah, Don C with the 5 memberships. Appreciate it, Don.
Yeah, Lisa in the chat asked if will there be a USC player, and I just want to clarify because I've heard USC now being South Carolina, and so I get kind of confused. So I gave you a South Carolina with O'Donnell Fortune. On the USC Southern California side, Jalen Smith, who again probably more of a nickel. I liked him a lot. I kind of heard him getting talked about on the First Draft podcast that Mel does with Field Yates on ESPN. So they gave him a little bit of love as somebody that scouts kind of like. He's kind of a do-it-all safety corner hybrid. So I like him kind of on day 3 too.
See, that's the type of guy that I like because I think the Ravens are in the market for cornerback, and they love flexibility when it comes to. I mean, I'm sorry, it's safety, and I think they love flexibility when it comes to their safety positions. They love those guys that they can do both, play both corner and safety. So that's I like that name because I think the Ravens are certainly, especially with the uncertainty of Ardarius Washington, they are certainly in the market for that. So I like that name. Yeah, I think that could be a possible target in the later rounds there. But I do want to talk. I know we talked a little bit last week of edge defenders, but I'm just curious about when a team like the Ravens that runs, how do you think that is it difficult when you see a person that has a hand in the dirt to project them to a team that uses more of an outside linebacker and does not have a hand like? How hard is it to differentiate guys that are more of a defensive end versus outside linebacker when they ultimately get clumped into the edge defender group? Is it tough to project those types of things?
It can be. I try to look at, like when I watch tape of players like edge specifically, like I watch to see, are they rushing from, like you said, hand on the ground? Do they stand up? Do they move around? Does size play a factor? And like, do they bend? Do they have a speed rush? So if you go on my board, you'll see different designations. Like, so if I classify somebody like as a defensive end, for example, I'm looking at them as more of a hand down player, and that could be because of size. It could be they just don't have, they can't get the corner right. So but they might still give you pass rush ability. If I classify somebody as a rusher, that's kind of more of a pass rusher, and I think that like a 4-3 and a 3-4 type team would be perfectly fine with them. They can play either or. And then if you see somebody that's kind of just straight up, like they're probably needing to rush standing up, I kind of call them a rush linebacker. So like an example of each one of these kind of designations, like Abdul Carter, for example, that's a pass rusher. Doesn't matter who he's going to go for. He can play either or. Jalen Walker, a lot of people classify him as an edge. I don't think he's big enough to rush with his hand down. So, like, if you're a 4-3 team and looking at him as the edge rusher, like, he's probably a designated pass rusher. And then if you look at, like, defensive end, like, right now I have Shamar Stewart there because, like, they had kind of listed him at, like, 280 and then he came in at, like, 267. I think he has enough physical ability to be there, but his teammate, Nick Scorton, I think he's a defensive end. I think he's a hand-down type player. So that just kind of gives you, like, I do try to qualify that in the way that I rank it. They're not just called edge. If you look at the position rankings, yeah, they're all grouped together. But on the board, I do designate between each one of those kind of characteristics as far as where they would be best lining up.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I don't think all edge rushers are created equal when it comes to teams, desires and what they're looking for. And you always say the flavor, whatever pick your flavor. I don't think that that each team is valuing and stacking their board at this position equally, of course. And I do think the Ravens have a need, I wonder, I still wonder if it's like, because we talked first round, but I don't know if we got into the weeds and talked some of the later round guys. And I think that's probably the more likely spot that the Ravens will go, because we talked last time, a lot of those top end of those the guys at the top end of the position rankings at edge are probably not going to be slipping to 27. So do they really want to take the sixth best guy, the eighth best guy? I think they will rather go in the first round with a position that maybe falls to them. So I think they're going to be looking in the later rounds. Having said that, what's this draft look like when it comes to the back, say rounds 4 through 7 as it pertains to edge? Is that more of is there still that depth in the draft, or are the Ravens going to be struggling to find someone to contribute early that late in the draft?
No, I think edge class, I think will, throughout. And like I said, I've still got more to go through, but like I feel pretty comfortable even once you get kind of into the 5th round. Like my blue players, if you're going by, Glenn, obviously that's not for you, but you can see the numbers attached to it, right?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
But there's guys that there's things to like about what they're either developmental, maybe they don't have the ceiling as some of these other players, but they've been productive in college. I think, there's a handful of still starter caliber, at least can get there within a year or two once you get on to day 3. I think we kind of went through like the top of the list last time, but you look at, there's the couple of LSU Tigers, Savion Jones, Braden Swinson. Swinson, I know, has gotten a lot more love. Like they've got him at 50. Like I've seen him kind of second, third. I haven't quite got there yet, but again, we've still got another month to go. So I got to kind of make that determination. I know there's some other things associated with him, so that have been reported that
okay.
maybe have been
stuff?
problematic. Yeah, our character and maturity type stuff.
Okay.
So we wait for the beast to get all of that inside information.
Yes.
For tape wise, I can kind of see him. He could be a 3rd round type of player. Jared Ivey, like you just passed there, like I think he's a top 100 player. They obviously do too. He's got a little bit more size. I thought he stood out more than Walter Nolan, who's gotten a lot more 1st round buzz. I think Jared Ivey's probably a 2nd or 3rd round, but like his length is hard to ignore when you're watching that tape. He's probably, I kind of put him as a defensive line. I think he could play like a end in a 3-man front.
Yeah.
But I think he could also rush, from the edge in a 4-man front. So, he's somebody that, again, probably day 2, but day 3, Josiah Stewart is a player that's undersized but been really productive for Michigan. Tough.
6'1".
Yeah.
Ooh, that is undersized.
Yeah, that's a rush linebacker for me. And probably more of like a designated pass rusher. I don't think he's going to be an off-ball linebacker for you, but you bring him on passing downs.
Has he dropped?
I don't think he's dropped. I couldn't put him as high because that size and those measurables are problematic, I think, for most teams.
Yeah.
That's where we see, like, we've gone through players over the years as we've kind of walked through this, like certain players where, like, talent wise, what you see probably goes there, but these teams aren't just judging off a tape. They're, they've got metrics. They're like, this arm length,
it's not going to match. It's not going to work.
It's not going to match. He might turn out to be really productive, but like, everybody kind of used the example of Dwight Freeney. Like, how many Dwight Freeneys though have there actually been?
Exactly.
Like, that's why he stood out.
That's why they say his name every time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Elijah Roberts, that's high for him. I like him as a player, but he's kind of, I think, a little bit more of a tweener. I couldn't go as high with him.
6'4", but heavy at 6'4".
Yeah, I felt like and I don't know if he came in at that, or if they had adjusted this for combine or measurements. Yeah,
right.
he came at 6'03", 285, so pretty close to that.
Yeah.
So I think he's more of a on the line type player versus an edge. So like that's why I was like, I think he's probably a 5th round. I do like his teammate. What's his name? Harrison Hunt.
Hunt.
Um, I liked that's his last name. I think it's maybe Jared Harrison Hunt. I think I liked him a little bit better, but I see him as more of an on the line player too.
PFF, get
So
it together. Get it together.
But yeah, one guy that I really liked that I had high first, and I was the only one. I was like, am I missing something? So I kind of bumped him down just a hair. Ja Joyner from Minnesota. I think there's something there with him. I think length is good. I think he kind of stood out a little bit in Senior Bowl process. So he's somebody I like. Probably looking at fourth round. We had a couple of good players come out of Minnesota more recently, like Boye Mafe from who's with the Seahawks, I believe, right now. Has been pretty good, solid for them.
He's got the size 6'6". Was it 265? That's prototypical Ravens edge right there.
Yeah, so I think a lot to like with him. And then Barron Sorrell from Texas. I know he had some love Senior Bowl time, and a lot of the people that I kind of follow and get at least get nuggets from seem to like him and what he's able to do. So again, size wise, I think he's pretty good. Then you have kind of more of a couple of like more not quite measurable guys, like a David Walker from Central Arkansas, who's just the rolling ball of butcher knives type guy, like been really productive at a small school, but like he just doesn't measure up in terms of like
sacks, 16, 3 years ago. Woo!
Yeah. So like he was at the Senior Bowl, and then Antoine Powell Ryland, who's another player that I think he had maybe 16 last year. But again, a little bit more of an undersized type player, I wouldn't call him tweenerish, but like, if he was an inch or two taller, I think we'd see a little bit more about him. So
14. I mean, 6'3", he's not terrible. 6'3", 250, if that's what he actually. Okay, shorter, 6'2", 240 is what he came in. Ooh.
6'0", 258.
Oh, 258. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
well,
again, a little tweenerish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't put arm lengths on mine, but I assume he didn't look big on tape.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's pretty good. Like there's a couple other guys: Tyler Barron, Miami, Jalen McLeod, Auburn. Those are two that I think are in that 4 to 6 range. So like if somebody took him in the 4th round, I wouldn't be surprised. But if they were still there in the 6th, I wouldn't be surprised either. I know there's kind of cheater grades, but that's how I look at it. I'm not one team or one person trying to grade on that, but 32 teams and like where did they see these guys? So again, we've still got quite a few more to go through. I think I'll probably end up 40 plus edge players over the course of this, and so we've got a few more to add. But yeah, there's some depth to this class for sure.
Yeah, and I think Nuno brings up the exact next position I was going to go, and I don't know if we touched on it our last time on here, but inside linebacker I think is a sneaky need for this team. When you look at when this defense was at its best, they had 2 All-Pro inside linebackers in Derek Queen. Look, you can tell I'm all about basketball right now. Derek Queen on the Terps. Shout out to him tomorrow. And they're gonna treat Grand Canyon State like they're gonna bend them over their knee and paint their back porch red from national TV. But not Derek Queen, Pat Queen. Pat Queen and Roquan were the best 1-2 punch at linebacker, and that was big part of the reason why they were the best defense in football. Had the Triple Crown, which of course leading the league in points, sacks, and interceptions, which is just absolutely insane. And while a lot of people thought Simpson was the guy, I don't think he's turned out. So Nuno brings it up. Inside linebacker could be another position that drops right into their lap. And I think it's a position that I think they would take if they see the best guy fall into their lap. So at inside linebacker, is that a position that every year, certain positions kind of go up and down with their importance, their value? We saw running back take hits, and then they come back with the veteran play of some of the elite running backs last season. I think their value might be coming back up. What's the feeling on inside linebacker when it comes to the draft? Is that a position that we might not see very many typically in a first round?
Yeah, usually at most you get like 2. Usually it's like one. This class particular, I think you've got the two linebackers, and they're both kind of hybrid players. I could probably interest you in Jihad Campbell. Like he's started to get like a little top 12, top 10 buzz, and it comes out he just had surgery on a torn labrum in his shoulder right after the combine. So maybe you get him at a discount. I think that would be awesome. But
Yeah. What type of player
you
is
know,
it?
he's been more off ball than I think Jalen Walker has, but I also think he's got some pass rush ability too. So you could move him around a little bit. I think kind of moving forward, and he's still relatively new to the position. So I think there's more of a ceiling there, but really, unless something I would say a little bit off the wall happens with like a Carson Schweschinger, who's like the kind of everybody's consensus, number 3 linebacker, if that's how you qualify these guys. After those first two names, he's the one that's like, he's the next one, right? I don't know that I see him in the first round. Doesn't come with a lot of experience, but was really productive this past year. I think he flies around, but I'm not sure that I see him in the first round. Second round, he's probably a top 40, top 50 for sure. But after that, I feel like it's a logjam. Like I think it's hard to kind of, you just kind of pick your favorite among like 10 guys here. Like everybody that you're listing, I'm like, these could be second, third round guys. They could be fourth or fifth round guys.
Wow.
Like I feel like I like Barrett Carter a little bit more than most, but that Clemson may be the Ravens, Michigan from Dallas side, where like you don't want another player from Michigan, y'all might not want another linebacker from Clemson. So,
Fair.
he was kind of among the one or two I think I saw on some early boards, and I think he started to move down a little bit. I still have him as linebacker 4, followed by Chris Paul Jr. After that from Ole Miss. I think he's gotten a lot more buzz as the process has gone on, as somebody that's probably a second or third round pick. We obviously have another Georgia linebacker, Smile Munden Jr., Cody Simon from Ohio State, Jeffrey Bassa, Oregon, Danny Stutzman, who I felt like overperformed at the combine. I didn't really see like the speed on tape, but he's just, kind of a thumper. So inside linebacker, I don't know if he's a sideline to sideline, but he does come downhill. Demetrius Knight Jr. is one of those players I talked about last time where I'm having a hard time with because I felt like he's kind of an old school thumper type, but then I've seen a lot of he's a top 50 player, and I haven't gotten there yet. So yeah, like for that, they have him at 33. So that's one I still have to figure out.
How old is this? Hold on. He's where did it show his age?
It shows it first look, and it just has it marked out.
What? And then it says he'll be the oldest prospect. What are we talking about?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's challenging. There's some 26-year-olds happening, as we've talked about.
Yeah, I don't like the sound of an old, but I will say this: when it comes to linebacker, I don't think, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think they would take one unless like the one they feel is the best falls into their lap. Because with Roquan here, typically when they're gonna drop down into the dime, obviously they're not going to be playing 2 linebackers. So I think it would have to be one of those top guys that you've already mentioned for them to even be intrigued enough. I don't see them taking a shot. Maybe, I guess it's possible, but Roquan's still very much so in his prime. He's not going anywhere. So I if it's not one of those guys you've already mentioned, I find it hard to believe that they're going to, kick the tires on a 4th round guy, 5th round guy. I don't see it. So I'm going to say if it's not those guys, then don't hold your breath for a late linebacker. But I know you did mention that you got through the running back position. And while no one's going to sit here and say that running back position is a need, we do have to realize and recognize that Derrick Henry's not going to play forever, folks. And this team has great running backs. There's no doubt. But after Derrick Henry, there's no other running backs that you can go, oh, well, he could carry the load. Like Justice Hill is complimentary. Mitchell is complementary. They're not options as far as like future running back. So having said that, how does the running back position, because the Ravens, I think, will at least consider a late addition at the position. And I don't think it's crazy to think that one could make the team. I mean, Mitchell has the lead, obviously, for third running back, but I don't think it's crazy. So what's the running back position looking like this year?
Yeah, I think, most years it's kind of unsure once you get to like the 6th, 7th round. I really think you get a running back rounds 1 through 5 in this one, they're making the team, if not giving you meaningful, snaps. So Genty, I think everybody is on. He's going to be in the top 10.
Is he that good? A lot of people I know have doubts about Genty, and they think that he was more of a compiler and just had a. But so, what's your thoughts on Genty?
He had more yards after contact than anybody else had yards this year.
So you're all in. You think he's a difference maker?
I'm all in. I think this is the best player in the draft.
Wow. Hold on. Number 1 over Travis Hunter over.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Go look at my top 100. Go look at my fan speak board. Genty is number 1. I wanted to come in thinking Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Genty. I couldn't ignore. I just think that I don't. He's not Barry Sanders. Obviously, that's who he was going as far as the Heisman numbers, but he's a special player. And I think just because he plays running back, he's undervalued. Like, he could very quickly move into being like a top 3, if not the top back in the league in a year or 2.
Damn. Okay.
All things being, stay positive for him. Like, he was their offense.
You see is there any chance the Browns go, we like running back?
I haven't gotten there just yet. As far as like team needs and mocks, because I was like, everybody's putting him at 6 to the Raiders now.
Yeah.
Before that it was 12 to the Cowboys because it's a running back. Nobody's going to draft him in the top 10. And I was like, what if somebody takes him in the top 5?
Yeah.
This is not there's 10 elite prospects and you're good to go. Like, there's like 3, I think. It's Carter, it's Genty, it's Travis Hunter as far as like evaluation wise. I was like, who does each one of these teams have? And I know, like, Nick Chubb has been in and out of their lineup over the past few years. I don't know who they have behind him.
Ford, they got some guys, but nobody.
Yeah, but the other thing working against him in this draft is that it's a really deep class. So somebody could say like, man, I really love him, but we could get something else here. We could get the top player at X position and circle back in the 2nd round, the 3rd round, and get one of these other running backs who would, they would be more than serviceable. They would be, starters, right? So that is where it starts. And, for me, like I said, this is the best player in this draft. I think he would have been better than Bijan. He would have been better. I don't know who was the first one that went last year. I'd have to go back and look.
Went to Carolina, Brooks.
Yeah, because
then he missed the whole year.
Last year was the lighter class.
Yeah.
So this is some people have him graded better than a lot of the top running backs in past classes, and I think he is one of probably the best that I've seen over the course of my time doing this.
Damn. That's serious words there. And I'm looking at the top 10 right now, and I'm thinking, man, who is in position to where they could say we're like, because I would assume a player, if you're going to pick him in the top 5, you got to feel good about your quarterback, because I don't like teams that don't have a quarterback and they draft a running back high and they waste all his good years before they finally find a quarterback and then he's done. So I guess I would hope that he goes to a team that has a decent quarterback situation. But man, like, imagine him at 11 going to the Niners at 11, maybe. I mean, I don't know what you're seeing about Christian McCaffrey in the long term there, but
right. Yeah,
that would be interesting. But yeah, so running back outside of the greatness that is Ashton Genty, because there's no way the Ravens would ever even get there. But you said it's a deep draft. So about the, because I don't think the Ravens would ever in a million years take a running back in the first round. I don't see that. There's just no way. They're too good there already, and they're not looking for a guy who's going to help year one. They're looking for a guy who's going to help in the future. What's the rest of the draft? Man, I'd love to see him get Scatabo, but there's just no chance they're going to take a guy that high. But what's the rest of the draft look like, particularly days, maybe like day 3 running backs?
Yeah, can I interest you in Scatabo there? Because I
Really?
don't think he's a second round player.
Okay.
Like
no, or third round.
Third round. I'm thinking like into the third round.
Okay.
I for what he brings, I don't think it's a first or second round type of investment. But yeah, he's in that mix. Like again, any other year, I think he'd get a lot more because you haven't heard much about him since the college football playoff. When you talk about Genty, you talk about Omari and Hampton, who I think has pulled away as being RB2 in this. You got the 2 Ohio State running backs who just continue to stack accolade after accolade on top of these, performances in this, draft process. Caleb Johnson, I think, has fallen back a little bit. I don't think a 4.6 was what anybody expected at the combine. I certainly didn't. I feel like, with everybody else running well, like I had to bump him down a little bit. I also think he's kind of scheme specific. So he's probably not going to be for everybody. He's more of an outside zone type player. But I think they're still the top 5. RJ Harvey from UCF, I really like. He's another, smaller, but not too much smaller. But he just bounces off tackles, right? So he's somebody I like kind of in that third round range. And then you do have another logjam, and it's a lot of different type of players. You got Dylan Sampson, who's probably more of a speed type back. Ollie Gordon, who I really like, who kind of played behind a bum offensive line the whole year last year, but before that was the Doak Walker Award winner.
Yes, I would love.
I think he had a little bit of struggle at the combine as far as like the running, but like I don't think that's his game. Like he's not a speed type. Like he's a bruiser, right? So like he's a big back, and I like him a lot as somebody kind of in the third round range. And I'm not sure if he goes there, if he's going to be there in the 4th or 5th, depending what these teams are looking at. But then you have the flip side, like a Brashard Smith, who's like, I think he's a former wide receiver from SMU, really good with the ball in his hands after the catch and that sort of thing. But again, a little bit on the smaller side. So I think he came in, under 200 pounds. So like, he's not going to be your bell cow, but like if you can carve out a role for him, I think he could make sense in the third round. Jordan James, who've kind of been likened to more of like a mini Marshawn Lynch. But
I like the sound of that.
5'9", 205. Like the size is not bad. I don't think he has the top end speed, but like I think he can come in and certainly be a productive back for you. One guy that's kind of started to gain a little bit of steam is Bashal Tutin. I think you got him there at 183. Not sure if he cracks the top 100, but running a 4.32 at the combine does not hurt.
Especially, he's not small. Like, I mean, I guess he is smaller, but he's not terribly small.
No, I think from that perspective,
That's insane.
He's kind of up, 509 to 206 again in that same range of what I think, and the speed you see it on tape. It's not just the combine number. Like he can get out and hit home runs for you. And then a couple of other kind of Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, who I like, as more of a third round, but he probably makes it into the 4th or the 5th. But really productive, decent size. And then Damian Martinez, who another kind of bigger bruiser type back from Miami. I think he's kind of in that 3rd or 4th round mix too. So there's a good stretch there. And then, you
big boy, 6 foot, 230. Whew.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you get into the fourth round, there's a lot of more guys there. LaQuint Allen, who is, I call him a flex player because I think he's just as good running the ball as he is receiving the ball.
Oh, I like that.
So there's something you can do with him there. He's kind of like the top of my 4 to 6. So like if he were to get into the third round, I know Mel really likes him too.
Pass
But he's the
protect
one.
too. That'll get you on the field early.
Yeah, I think he brings a lot of versatility. Devin Neal, who I think has fallen a little bit back under the radar because the combine wasn't as good for him, but it wasn't bad. But he was kind of approaching that kind of high 4.5s as a run. But he's somebody that's been really productive for Kansas. We have another Trevor Etienne from Georgia, who I think is more of a home run
Where'd he
type
go?
hitter back as well.
Oh, I
DJ
lost
Giddens
him.
from Kansas State.
Who is it?
So Trevor Etienne.
Oh yeah, I lost him. But who was it? Who you said from Kansas State?
DJ Giddens.
Giddens.
Yeah, Giddens.
There he is. There he is.
So he started to get a little bit of a push towards top 100. Again, I don't know that I'm quite there, but again,
Seems
a
like a
really
deep
good.
class, huh?
Yeah, it's a really deep crack. I'm down into like the 20s now of the names that
Damn.
I listed. So you think usually you get between like around like 25, 30 backs taken. So like some of these guys are going to go in the 5th, 6th round. One guy that I just found that I really liked in this second phase of watching the past the top names, Montrell Johnson Jr. from Florida. I thought his tape was pretty fun. And I think there's some ability to tap into there. I think you go back to the stats on the
Yeah.
other side, like the size is good. Not a lot of mileage on the tires there.
Yeah, 100
So,
attempts only last year. Not a lot.
so, so he's a guy that I think, if you've got a platoon, if you've got somebody that you want to kind of stash for a year or two, um, he might be a guy for you. So,
That's what I'm looking for. A stash
yes.
potential.
So, and there's some other names kind of further down the board. I don't know that I like any of them that much to kind of like bring a lot of attention to. Like once I get kind of in the 5th, they're kind of they may or may not get drafted for one reason or another. It could be injury. It could be, they just weren't fast enough. And sometimes that does matter. Like I know it's, the underwear Olympics and all, but when you see something on tape and then you don't see it in the combine or at the reverse, there's something you got to kind of go back to. And some of these guys that just weren't for me either. So, but yeah, as far as getting somebody in the day 3, you can get somebody that's going to come in and I think and play well for you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully the Ravens, I think they have a position there. As much as people like what we have in town or in house with Mitchell and all, I still think it's a position they could target late. Corey C says, "How about interior defensive line?" I think that's a need with Urban and Pierce gone. Jason, you're the man. Yes, he is. Yes, Jason, you are the man. I know we touched on it a little bit last time you were on. I believe we talked interior defensive line, but I'm certainly open to revisiting it. When it comes to the interior, I do think it is a position where the Ravens could be active. Is that a position early on that could find a slide, or is that something that because we talked a little bit about? I know we talked Mason Graham. I'm not sure who all we got down. Like if we got into the later rounds of the draft, or if we only talked initial. I think we just talked on the top end, but. Is that a position that the Ravens could see maybe a slide at a couple of guys where other teams might be going more flashier picks?
Yeah, and the other thing is it's going to be a deep defensive line class. Very, very similar to a couple of the other these positions we talked about. I haven't been through kind of my second round of this, but I kind of have flagged a couple players that I'm like probably moving up, a couple I might move down. So it depends on what you're looking for. I know he put Urban and Pierce, who probably, a little bit more of the run stuffer side, a little bit more of the big body side.
Yep.
I might have mentioned the last time Cam Jackson from Florida is one player that I really like that I think I'm probably higher on than most, and I'll probably move him back down to kind of more of a day 3. But again, it's a process, right? But huge, 6'6", 328 pounds at the combine.
Damn.
and you don't move him. That was the one thing I noticed is like some of these guys, they get kind of turned, they get kind of pushed over. This is not somebody that happens to. Like he's not going anywhere.
I bet.
So he's somebody that I really like for that reason, but you don't usually see those players kind of go high early.
That'd be a
Again,
perfect replacement because Brent Urban's 6'7", I believe, and he's going bye-bye. And then Michael Pierce, the ultimate hydrant that could never be moved, even with a double team. Seems like this guy could kind of be a mixture of both of these guys.
yeah, he was like, man, I'm never going to top that big man pick. So
Yeah, that's right. He went out on a high note. But hey, I see he got 2 sacks last year. Is that just a fluke, or is there any pass rush?
I didn't really see much. I don't know that
Okay.
I caught the sacks
Gotcha.
in the games that I watched. So, I was looking at more of the run stuff and ability. I don't think you would get too much pressure from him. Like I said, I don't think he's a twitchy mover of any sort.
Okay.
Um, so if that's the type of player, I think him. Another one that's kind of in that mid-round range, Jamari Caldwell from Oregon. There's quite a few of these Oregon players on the in the mix here from the defensive line standpoint. I think he's probably the lowest of the bunch. Harmon, I think, is probably a first or second round player. But yeah, he's kind of a fire hydrant in the middle. That maybe wouldn't call him the trash can full of dirt because I think he has a little bit more movement ability than his size might, betray. But he came in at 6'2", 332 at the combine. So probably a little bit better numbers there. I think he is a little bit more of a quicker player, and I think he's certainly gotten a little bit more buzz since then. But I don't think we're going to push him into the day 2, but certainly once you get into the 4th round, I think he's going to be in the mix there. But otherwise, those type of players that you're looking for, I think they're going to stretch. I don't know if you're talking about instant starter kind of later. One player I wanted to bring attention to, because this was stuff that I just heard about this week. I think we might have talked about him last time. Deion Walker from Kentucky, who's kind of, the, first guy off the bus type.
Okay.
At what did he come in at? Yeah, 6. He's certainly up there with that. He actually came in better than that, 6'7", 03, at 331, and apparently played most of this season with a broken back. Or
What?
he has some sort of lingering injury to his back that it's more of a maintenance thing, and it flares up and it kind of impacts which is kind of scary.
Yeah. But it could
So
cause him to slip, Jason.
yeah, this was a guy that they've talked about flashes being first round caliber, but nobody really put him there because it was like, what's the deal with him? Does he take plays off? Does his motor not run hot? Turns out he may be running with a pretty scary kind of
Yeah.
injury. It's troublesome, I think. And because I was like, back for a defensive lineman,
Yeah.
and
That's not
especially
good.
somebody that's carrying that kind of physique and that kind of frame. Uh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how teams are going to see that.
Hmm.
And so if it's something, and it doesn't seem like it was just a this year thing and it's getting corrected. It's like something he's dealt with for a while and has had to manage it. And you wonder about that moving forward, like how teams are going to read that. He could be somebody that we're looking at as a top 100 type kind of ceiling player, but 5th, 6th round rolls by and he's still on the board, and that's what it's going to be for sure. And that's unfortunate for him, but that's the reality of as we go through this process, this information comes out, and then you kind of get a clearer picture of that. But as far as like a size,
And they got him right on the cusp of their top 100 here, 103.
Yeah, I hadn't had him that high because watching the tape, like I didn't see it. And, I still kind of had him in that 3rd, 4th round range because like somebody's going to take a chance on that size. Right. But that injury, I think, is going to be troublesome.
But if if he's able to play through it, if they're able to manage it, maybe strengthen other parts of the body to help manage the pain. I did see that they said, despite being that big, he's got skinny calves and skinny ankles. So he's not
he's
as strong as you'd like in the lower half, especially to support a back injury.
I'm not sure he carries the weight as some of these other guys do.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't know that there's an excuse for that kind of thing anymore with the way these college programs are run. Like if your body makeup doesn't measure up, because what we talked about the last time, 300 doesn't look like 300 used to.
Yeah.
These guys will come in and they're built to manage the rigors of a pro game. And if you're coming in and it doesn't look like you've been putting the work in for whatever reason it may be, I feel like that's at least a yellow flag, if not a
For
red
sure.
flag.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. No excuses. I mean, a lot of college programs have better weight rooms and facilities than pro teams. So, yeah, I mean, no excuses there. Not something you want to see, especially when you're in college as an athlete now. They say student first. The heck no, not even close. They are athletes first, students second, especially with the money they're getting paid. Half a lot of these top first round picks are going to be millionaires before they get to the league, just in NIL payment and other things. Man, that's a name. Zeke Biggers. That's a name.
Zeke Biggers. Yeah, I was like, that's a solid name.
That is a solid name. I love it.
Especially for a defensive lineman.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to have that name, defensive lineman might be the best position to have it. But look, we still got a lot of stuff to get through. I know Jason was mentioning. I know you were mentioning, Jason, that you still got some stuff you need to get through. Still got to finish out your rankings and then start to get into the mock drafts. And that's what we're looking most forward to do. And that's what we're going to be doing here. Probably next time you see Jason on here will be to start the mock draft process. Again, folks, we didn't want to rush into it. Didn't want to jump too far into it because then you end up with about 1,000 different mock drafts. We wanted to slowly work our way towards it. Still got a long way to go. We got over a month until the draft is here. So I don't want to exhaust everything before then, but certainly happy and excited to have you on once again, Jason, to continue to build our knowledge towards this draft, as we know the Ravens value it more than most. So Jason, appreciate you joining us, guys. If you want to find out all of Jason's stuff, go over to DraftPlex, see his position ranking, see his top 100 board, and just continue to remember that's ever evolving. That's going to be something he's going to continue to change and go over. And of course, find him on X at DraftPlex, right? Is it just
NFLDraftPlex.com. I've been trying for years to secure DraftPlex.com, but somebody's squatting on that thing and won't let go of it for whatever purposes they have.
great?
So it's there. But yeah, if you go there and the stuff isn't quite updated, just give me a little bit more time. I'm not getting paid to do this, folks.
That's right. That's right. But thanks again, Jason, for coming out with us tonight. That's it for us tonight, guys. We'll be back. Let's see. What's today? Thursday. We'll be back here in just a few days to continue talking about this Ravens offseason. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll talk soon.